Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Quorum Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the original Quantum Leap, Season 3, Episode 13, Future Boy. The episode's description reads as follows. As a sidekick on the 1950s children's science fiction series Time Patrol, Sam must prevent the death of the star of the show. The episode was written by Tommy Thompson. His last effort was Miss Deep South. I wasn't overly fond of that. I mean, I think I like half of that episode. I like the dramatic aspects of that episode, less the broad comedy aspects of that episode. And the next one he will do will be this season's Southern Comfort. And Tommy Thompson, I mentioned this when we were doing trivia. I happened to talk to his daughter, so that was interesting. She actually ended up a casting director, thanks to her father, Tommy Thompson. So hopefully someday we can actually talk to the two of them, but I haven't heard from her, so I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen or not. The episode was directed by Michael Switzer. This is his only directorial stint on the series. He had 54 directing credits altogether, the last of which was 4 episodes of Prison Break back in 2008. The episode takes place on October 6, 1957, and originally aired on March 13, 1991. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a sport-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go check it out and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please follow, and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Quorum Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. Alright, shoutouts this week. I missed both of these before. One for Paul Rubens. I missed this twice. I was supposed to mention it. He died July 30th. He was 70 years old.
Wow. Pee
Wee Herman was 70 years old. That's hard to imagine. And also one for Sam Beckett, who had a birthday on August the 8th, 1953. Well, it would be a more recent birthday than that, but that's when he was born. And also a shout out for our very own Adam S. Wilcox, who had a birthday this Sunday on August 13th. I will save our trivia-related shout-outs for when we do Season 3 next week. For those who are not in the know, we've done a couple episodes of trivia. Stacie ended up taking the first round. I ended up winning the second, and maybe Adam will beat us in the third.
I don't find that very likely.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
Hey, you never know. Crazier things have happened.
Here's what I figure is, for Season 3 especially, like, I think both of us have an advantage.
Yeah.
Because we're currently covering Season 3.
After that season, though, my advantage disappears.
Right.
I will probably be doing way less.
Exactly. So you've had an advantage so far because you have, within the last, however long, really dug deep into those episodes, right, for the podcast. And, at least for this chunk of episodes in Season 3, I've, taken that journey with you and really dug deep into them. So, really just kind of knowing some of those details, kind of ingrained because of this research. But yeah, once we pass that midway point of Season 3, like where we are right now, what is this, episode 13, it's going to be like further memories, right?
Yep.
Especially for you, I think.
Oh, yeah.
When's the last time you watched late Season 3 or 4 or 5?
Late Season 3, I've watched fairly recently. 4 and 5, it's been a while since I've, actively watched it.
But then again, it's, some of the better, more favorite episodes.
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
there's a toss-up there. Adam might have more advantage the further we get, just because he's seen those episodes most recently. I mean, I saw them with him, too, so maybe I get the advantage here for having both recency and for doing the podcast. I don't know.
Me, personally, I'm happy I won a round. That was good enough for me. Season 3 is probably my last chance to actually win another round, given that, those are the most recent episodes that I've covered. But we shall see. If you haven't watched the 2 trivia episodes, go and check them out. So, Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
Okay, so Future Boy, it's one of the classic episodes, right? It's always one that's notable. When people make their lists of here's
the top 10.
Here's the episodes that you should your must-sees, right? And I don't think it's in that very top tier. It's not like most of our season finales and premieres and all the personal episodes, dealing with Sam and Al's lives are the ones that go right to the top, right? The you can't miss episodes.
Right.
But this falls right below those, I think, in that secondary chunk of just really memorable, highly acclaimed episodes. As opposed to, a lot of episodes that just kind of are forgettable, But that being said, I don't know if I ever, particularly loved this episode myself. I don't know. Looking at it as an adult, I feel like it's a very sad story.
Yeah, it is.
I think I missed that when I was younger. Just the heartache behind the story that's happening here with Mostine. And you as a child, when you watch this, you see more, it's about this kid's show, and it's about this fun television, and traveling in time, and they're actors, but you kind of miss the big picture here of what this is really about. I think, when we were little watching this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think this is a classic episode of the series, like you said. It's probably the lesser of the classic episodes, but I still think it's pretty good. You can't really talk about this episode without talking about Richard Hurd, who plays Mostine and Captain Galaxy in this episode. He has the honor of creating two extremely memorable characters within the series. This character, and of course the one in the series finale. And you looking through his Internet Movie Database page, he was Mr. 90s. He was in practically everything.
Right. He's got, 1 or 2 credits in everything ever made.
Right, pretty much. I mean, I don't think I saw him in the X-Files or anything like that, but you look through his list and
I know he has some Star Trek credits.
Yeah, he played Tom Paris's father on Star Trek Voyager. I think he was in 5 episodes of that series. He also would work with the writer of this episode again, Tommy Thompson. He would work with him on Sequest DSB. Richard Hurd was in the first season, I think, of that series, doing 13 episodes. Tommy Thompson, I believe, wrote the first episode of that series. And so he also would work again with this actor, or this writer rather. And Richard Hurd, in total, has 156 acting credits.
It's a very impressive
that's
resume.
Yeah, absolutely. He died on May 26, 2020.
Yeah, and I believe he was working right up until that.
Pretty much.
He had very recent credits.
Mm-hmm. He actually was in a Clint Eastwood movie. I think that was one of his last credits. So, he creates a very memorable character here, probably one of the more memorable characters of the series.
Which is a reason that, they brought the actor back for the finale. All of those characters that we referenced back, with different characters, but the same actors, and Sam remembering these people that he's met on his journey. You can see right there that they know these are the impactful moments from the series. The ones that made an impact on Sam, even.
All right, so let's dive into this thing. All right, so Sam leaps in. He's on a futuristic spaceship wearing a tinfoil costume. Richard Hurd, playing Mostine and Captain Galaxy, is telling him to activate the time circuits. Machines beep and whir, and Sam says, "Oh boy."
And he even says the accelerator.
Oh, yes. He mentioned the accelerator.
Some very, familiar language.
So what's interesting... so it seems to me like Sam should already know he's on a television show. Right from the get-go. He should, be able to see a camera somewhere.
Well...
I mean,
he was looking straight ahead at, the control panel.
Right.
And if you jump into that situation... And, I don't know, there's all the blinking lights, and the machine's kind of moving, and, if you think you might be, actually piloting something...
Right, you're paying more attention to the controls.
Would you look away to be oh, is there an audience watching?
Right, yeah, I gotcha.
I mean, it didn't take him long to figure it out, but it was a really quick, open. Mm-hmm. And he had this look on his face, he looks very confused, looks very concerned, oh, my goodness, what is happening? And I don't know... Would it be? I don't know if it would be, out of belief that he thinks he might be in another time travel project.
I don't know. Especially with 1957's technology, the cameras back then were big.
Right, so but it wasn't in his face. Yeah, it was a ways away.
All right, but when we come back from the credits, Stein is telling him to do things he doesn't know how to do.
Yeah.
And pointing out where the correct buttons are. He says, "Now let's take a look at the future." He opens a hatch, climbs out. Sam ends up falling, and he sprains his ankle at this moment, which is a thing that travels throughout the episode, I think. And they end up going out of the spaceship onto a set. In front of him is a camera that he's waving at. Hey, Sam, you're not supposed to break the third wall like that. And then he looks at someone who's getting his attention, holding a cue card to get his lines read. And this guy is played by George Weiner, who plays Ben Harris. I'm not even really sure who Ben was in this episode. Was he the writer or the director?
I thought he was the director.
Okay. Because they also make reference to him writing lines. So I don't know. Was he both?
I don't know.
But he has 224 acting credits. He's still acting to this day. You would probably recognize him from being in Million Little Things, because he was in 2 episodes of that series.
Oh, was he?
This season, which I believe was the final season of the show.
I'll have to look at that.
Yep. Sam reads his lines badly. He's acting. He's not a very good actor.
He's not a very good actor. I think he was just kind of blindsided by the whole situation.
And he ends up stepping on Stein's lines.
Remember where he's coming from right before this too.
Yes. He was just in the middle of giving birth, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
so his mind's a little all over the place, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is. And, there's a lot of emotions that come with pregnancy and giving birth and all that. Though I don't think he ever actually got to fully give birth.
No, but you know what? It's good to bring that up. Talking about he was in the middle of something that they didn't really understand. They thought the baby might actually be with him, and then they weren't sure what's going to happen. And he thought, this is really bad stuff. And now he might be in a time travel project. Like, that would make sense, right? If some timey-wimey thing pulled him out of that.
Maybe.
That he might end up somewhere weird right now. So with all that on his mind, I think that just adds to the confusion of him not being able to step right up and fully acclimate himself to the situation.
He's always in that kind of boat where he's not fully able to, totally...
Sure, but yeah, he really was kind of fumbling here more than often.
So, apparently in the show, they have traveled to the year 1987.
Yeah, they were on a futuristic cruise ship, 30 years in the future, so he was able to quickly calculate that it's 1957.
I'm 6 years old at this point in that they've traveled
in the future.
Yes.
Yeah. And Captain Galaxy is using what they're calling a gyrograph, which looks an awful lot like Al's hand link without the flashing lights.
So yeah, that's interesting in itself. Maybe we got the inspiration for a lot of the tech that Sam uses comes from this show. Maybe on a subconscious level, because he doesn't seem to even remember this show.
Yeah, our Sam doesn't remember this, but that's not to say pre-Swiss cheese Sam didn't.
That's true. Yeah, because he probably had some memories, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he just retained it subconsciously and just built the technology from that subconscious memory.
Right.
All right, so Stein starts going off script. And, okay, so first they travel through this little time area. They're invisible. They see some aliens talking about taking over the world. And Stein ends up going off script saying, no, this is not the future. The future will not be like this. And this is pissing off their boss, who's, trying to get him to stop talking.
Yeah.
But Sam ends up playing along and saying, yeah, the future will be great.
Because here's the thing about 1950s television. This is being broadcast live.
Right, yeah.
This isn't a cut, let's reshoot situation. They're on the air.
And there's no reruns at this point, I don't believe. And Mo Stein, after the show is finished, ends up reading some fan mail from a rocket. And Davey asks if Superman and Captain Galaxy were to get into a fight, who would win? And Mo Stein says that they wouldn't fight because they're good friends. And that violence solves absolutely nothing. This again seems to piss off their boss, Ben Harris.
Yeah. Mo, he has really good messages, I think. And he's trying to be a good role model for the kids that's watching his show. And I think this is all top-notch stuff, Yeah. He's trying to tell them, you're going to make the future, be a good person, make good choices, and let's fix our future, right?
Right.
And the director's just like, no, violence sells.
Right.
Don't tell them don't to be violent.
He specifically says that kids love violence when Mo says that, basically that he doesn't want the kids to see a future of only violence.
Yeah. So I think Mo's right, but the problem here is, of course, he's not doing what he's been hired to do. He's trying to make his own show, and he's not in a place where he's supposed to be doing that.
And Stein, when Ben Harris says that kids love violence, comes back with, basically, they love violence because we tell them to. We should be telling them about a bright future, about making a better tomorrow. And Sam, listening to this, is suitably impressed. He has a smile on his face. He seems to enjoy what Mo Stein has to say.
Right. He instantly knows that, Mo and him share a very similar philosophy.
Mm-hmm. So Stein ends up going off. Ben Harris is like, hey, look, get this guy in line or we're going to fire him. And he ends up going off. A stagehand, I think this is a stagehand. He's a guy with glasses.
Kind of assistant of some kind.
He comes with an ice pack for his ankle. And then Sam goes to the dressing room where he sees his mirror image, which is of a young kid. And then he sees an article which has a glowing review of Macbeth, which is Stein's performance. He gave a performance in Macbeth. And Stein comes in and says, hey, bringing up the name of the play is bad luck. And that actually is a superstition within theater, by the way. And Stein has had a great career being in a lot of Shakespeare plays.
Right. He was a very, very famous, apparently, stage actor. And he doesn't seem happy that he's working in television. So it's 1957. Television's still pretty new.
Right. It's not like today, that's for sure.
Right.
It's more of an art form.
The connotation around television is that it's not real acting, right? To be on the stage or to be on the big screen, those are the goals for acting. And to be a television actor was kind of looked at as secondary, like, oh, it's a kid's show. Television's for kids.
Right.
And, for housewives who nobody cares about them. And, you're either a has-been or a never was if you're on television. Like, that was the view that a lot of people in the industry had at this early time point.
Yeah, it's very different these days where you have, like, movie stars that show up in television series because it's considered more of an art form nowadays than it was back then.
Right. It was looked at like it's a novelty.
Right.
Like even to be on the radio was considered, more more prolific than being on television.
And these days, like, some actors actually prefer to be in television shows because it gives them more time to explore their characters. So that's why a lot of people have flocked more to television as an art form over movies or such and such. Though I'm sure there's still like the feeling that being on the stage is more real acting than being in the movies or
I'm sure like within those more isolated communities, everybody's gonna have a preference for their preferred medium. But it's just like this idea here that Mo sees himself as a has-been because he's the star of a TV show.
Right. So Stein ends up asking about Sam's ankle, and Sam says it's a little sore, and Stein comes back with, not as sore as Ben Harris. And Sam thinks that he just doesn't like him changing his dialogue. And Stein, of course, scoffs at this, saying, Shakespeare wrote dialogue. Ben Harris writes television, which goes back to everything we were just saying.
Yeah.
Sam asks, are you afraid of losing your job? And Stein says it doesn't matter. He won't be there for much longer. And Sam's like, well, where are you going? And he doesn't get a chance to answer this question because there's a knock at the door. And it turns out to be his daughter, Irene. I didn't actually ever look into the actress's name.
She only had a handful of credits.
Really?
I peeked, but I didn't see anything noteworthy.
Now, it's kind of funny because as a kid, the perspective is that she's just kind of like a humorless shrew. Like that she's basically the villain of the piece. But you see her very differently from or at least I do, from an adult's perspective. I don't necessarily see her as the enemy, but as a person that had somewhat of a lousy childhood, loves her dad, but kind of resents him in a lot of ways at the same time. So my perspective on this character definitely changed from being a kid to now, that's for sure.
Right. So, another thing that hit me watching this is, these characters, both Mo and his daughter, are just so much younger than I feel like I thought they were. Like, he's 65. He's not that old. And in my brain, he's like this 90-year-old man.
And she's probably like in her 30s. Actually, they make a specific mention about 30 years.
30 years ago. So yeah, she's like 29, 30.
All right. So they end up having an argument. Sam witnesses this from afar. Al ends up making his first appearance at the 11-minute mark, and he's making fun of Sam, saying that Sam is going to a costume party dressed as a baked potato.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to note at this point that Al is dressed very conservatively.
Sam's concerned by this. He's like, what happened? Is there a funeral?
Did somebody die? But no, nobody died. He's just having a court appearance with his fourth wife, who wants more alimony, basically. And the lawyer thinks that he would have a better chance of, not working over more money if he looks more like an adult. Al asks Sam for being Future Boy, and Al gives him the rundown of who he is and when he is. He's leaped into a kid named Kenny Sharp. Ziggy gives odds of 96.2% that he's there to save Mo Stein, who will die tomorrow afternoon trying to hop a freight train. Mm-hmm. Which brings up my first problem with this episode. I have a couple.
Okay.
It's a classic episode, but there are a couple of issues. One, I don't see at any point where Sam actually changes this.
Right.
It's much like your feelings about Let Them Play.
Yeah, well, I see where he changes, the general, what's happening, because I'm sure Kenny didn't get involved at all. Right?
Yeah.
Kenny and Mo probably had no interactions outside of the stage, the studio. So I guess he changes the whole course of what happens over these 2 days. But, we never really get to the train. What was supposed to happen? How does that fit into this?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that hit me too. We mentioned trains at some point. Mo says he really likes trains, but how are we supposed to get from here to he dies hopping a train?
Right.
It's like there's something missing.
Right. Specifically since his whole motivation is he wants to go backwards in time. Right. So why does he go to the train yard and not go home in the first place? Why? I don't understand why he ends up there at all.
And I feel like the trains brought up is a Back to the Future reference. Mm-hmm. Because there's a heavy Back to the Future kind of influences here.
Yes, absolutely.
Mo Stein's a lot like Doc Brown. He's this eccentric.
Well, they even have him dress up as Doc Brown.
He's this eccentric inventor character. His motivations are different, but you can definitely see the similarities there, where they're trying to invoke that whole idea, right? Of his crazy scientist and then his kind of young sidekick,
right?
And the train, of course, is important in that story in part 3. So I feel like maybe it was just wanting to nod to that is why they brought a train into the story.
Maybe.
But, yeah, they just never connected the dots on, well, okay, what was going to happen? What's the story here? It
doesn't ruin the episode or anything like that, but it's something that's kind of notable, kind of a loose end within the episode.
Right. Also in this conversation, Sam's like, well, that's easy. We just have him not go to the train yard, right? Mm-hmm. And Ziggy says that the only way to save him is to have him committed.
Which brings up my second problem. Al is all on board with this committing Mo Stein thing. And I don't think he should be. I don't think it makes sense for his character. The main reason I feel like that I don't think Al would be so cavalier about locking somebody up, is his sister Trudy.
Right.
Who was institutionalized and died in a mental institution.
Well, to play devil's advocate on that a little bit, Trudy was a child who had a disability, a mental disability. So his viewpoints about the aging must be different than his viewpoints about, mental health in general.
I just think that, Al wouldn't be quite so quick with this.
Yeah.
I think that would at least be in his mind.
Maybe he was just too distracted by his court case.
Yeah. Especially when we're talking about, institutions in the 1950s, which we got a very vivid look at in the new series.
And, it's a similar concept to, how Trudy was put in an institution. An institution is just kind of a catch-all back then for anyone that the families couldn't take care of. Right. We talk about Trudy or Jimmy going to institution. We talk about I forget the character's name, the one who sees UFOs going to institution.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And we're talking about Mo Stein getting sent to an institution. When really, in a modern era, we wouldn't be talking about institutionalizing him. We might be talking about
a home
assisted
nurse.
Living.
Yeah, a home nurse or something. Yeah.
Because, maybe today he might get diagnosed with dementia or something of that effect. But yeah, I don't think a mental institution that we think of, it's not the same connotation as back then. Back then, that was just anybody we can't take care of, we're just going to put them all together, and that's that. And it's an institution.
So Sam ends up objecting to this, And it's the exact objection I have. Why save the man's life and then have him institutionalized?
Right.
Really, what's the point of that? If he's just going to live out his days, like, locked up, then why save him at all, honestly? Sam thinks that's insane, and Al suggests maybe Stein was crazy.
Yeah.
According...
Which, I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, some people do need psychiatric care.
Mm-hmm.
But neither, like, they hadn't really gotten to know this guy at all.
Right,
For
right.
either of them to really be so set in their opinions on this.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Especially Al. Like, Sam, I understand, like, him having this opinion, and I think it's the correct opinion.
I mean, it is the correct opinion, but it's also could have been possible that, you know, he really was, like, super at risk here of hurting himself.
So, according to Ziggy, his daughter tried to get him locked up. He runs away during the hearing, and that's when he dies trying to hop a train. Oh, okay, so what's the solution here then? Try to get him locked up sooner so that this doesn't happen? Or I'm really kind of confused as to...
Yeah. Well, when Ziggy said that the only way to save him was to have him institutionalized, I got the insinuation that, you know, if you just get him through this day, something else is going to happen later down the road where he ends up, you know, getting himself killed, basically.
Okay, gotcha.
That, you know, it does come down to the fact that he needs help.
Well, that's absolutely sure. That's absolutely true. But
right, the solution here is to get him help outside of an institution.
Right.
Because he's not okay to just live on his own.
Right.
That is the truth here. Is he does get distracted and he does have accidents and he just needs some care.
Right. So Sam thinks that him running away is proof of his sanity because only an insane person would sit by and let themselves be committed. Sam says that they don't know that Mo Stein is crazy. He points to himself saying, he's dressed like a TV dinner talking to a hologram. What does that make Sam? And Al comes back with, it makes him eccentric. And Sam says, well, perhaps that's what Mo is. A person who marches to the tune of a different drummer. They both know people like that, and it's not a crime. They hear outside the door Mo and Irene arguing, and Sam suggests the real problem is Irene. Mo comes back into the dressing room, makes some vague reference to another 24 hours that everything will be fine in, and Mo wants Sam to run interference for him so he can slip away from her and basically offers him the chance to read space mail tomorrow, which I don't think is a promise he ever keeps.
No.
Sam reluctantly agrees after being shoved out the door. I don't even think he really agrees to this. He's just kind of like forced into it.
Yeah.
He introduces himself to Irene, and Sam tries to talk to her out of committing her father, but she believes him to be a sick man. She details an incident where he lost control of his car because he was daydreaming. Okay, sure. That's a problem, but does that mean he needs to be...
Maybe he shouldn't have a driver's license anymore.
Right. Maybe we shouldn't just immediately go to institutionalizing the guy. But then she talks about an incident where he got distracted making soup and almost burned down the house. Again, maybe you just need to give him some supervision, not necessarily locking him up right away.
Right. And Sam suggests as much, says, maybe someone in your family can just help take care of him. And
she suggests that's impossible because she doesn't have a real relationship with him. And she doesn't know why she's telling Sam that. And Sam says, well, perhaps because I'm listening. And they end up...
definitely, Kenny wouldn't have been involved in this.
Right. Kenny would have just walked away and been like, I'm not dealing with this.
Right.
I think he probably ended up trying to get Kenny to help him. And did Kenny in the original history? That's an interesting question.
Definitely not to the extent that Sam gets involved.
Right. Definitely not.
I mean, he may have talked to the woman for a minute, but I don't think he actually would have offered any guidance or help in this situation.
He definitely wouldn't have had the opinions that Sam had.
No.
So she describes a crappy relationship with her father, who was always away because he was always doing films or in plays. And at 17, her mother died and put the responsibility for taking care of Mo on her. She says that she has her own family now and can't be responsible for taking care of him anymore. Sam says he's sure he didn't mean to hurt her, and this is where we learn that he didn't even go to the funeral. Right. So
his wife died.
Yeah.
His 17-year-old daughter's left alone to handle it, and he was too busy on some production to come back for this.
And Sam suggests that perhaps it was too painful for her. And she says, well, he should have come home anyway. And Sam agrees, but at this point, for herself, she needs to let go of that anger. That maybe they can find a way to start over and patch things up. He's starting to get through to her, but he's interrupted by the stagehand saying that he has to go shoot a live spot, a commercial. And he tries to keep her there, but she says, I don't know why you're involved in this, and just basically leaves.
Yeah, and hands him a letter to give to Mo, which we later learn is the court summons to talk to the judge the next day.
Sam suggests that she should give it to him herself, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with that and says just to leave her alone, basically. So Sam ends up going to the spot. It's for a Mr. Scrubbo.
Mr. Scrubbo.
Yes.
He's basically dressed as a giant Brillo pad, dancing around this 1950s kitchen, and I loved this scene.
Right.
This was like visually just super entertaining to watch Sam fumble through this song and dance number.
Less amused by this is Ben Harris, who thinks he should have gone into like film or some other thing besides what he's doing now.
I think he said I should have stayed in radio.
Oh, stayed in radio? Yeah. You would have a less, not quite as crazy commercials in radio for sure. Sam asks Al about the letter, and Al says that it's likely a order to appear in court the next day. Mo didn't show up for his court-appointed meeting with Dr. Sandler, and Sam suggests that they get Mo to meet with him and prove that he isn't crazy. If that's what's going to happen. I don't know about that, Sam. While Sam is being observed by Ben talking to nothing, basically.
Yeah, so he's the one looking crazy.
Right. I'm surprised they never actually get back to this.
This guy must think his show's in trouble because both of his stars are kind of gone cuckoo.
I mean, Sam could just be rehearsing lines.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, Al says you can't change a leopard's spots. And Sam says he's not there to, change Mo Stein's spots, but perhaps just make him a little bit more presentable.
Like Al did to go to court.
Right, yeah. He dressed normally so that he could impress the lawyers.
Right, which is exactly what Sam's trying to do with Mo in this episode.
I didn't make that connection ever. That's pretty good. So Sam ends up going to Mo's place, which has a broken fence and a car that looks broken down.
Yeah, we see real quickly that Mo's a little bit of a pack rat.
Yep.
And we also see some experiments and like scientific stuff. And this is where we really see, Mo is, our resident Doc Brown.
Right. And Sam narrates that it's going to take some work to, get him to change his image. He enters the house calling for Mo and finds Stein wearing a lab coat looking like Doc Brown. That's specifically in my notes. So it's interesting that we brought up the Back to the Future references early. He brings the court summons. And Mo says a lot of people thought that Einstein was crazy, but they didn't try and lock him up. I'm not sure that's totally accurate. I don't know. I maybe at one point they did try to lock him up. I'm not really sure. They definitely tried to lock Doc Brown up.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's also interesting that one of Doc Brown's dogs was named Einstein.
Yep.
And the character's name here, his last name is Stein. So those are two interesting little details. Sam says he knows that he's not crazy, so why don't we meet with the doctor so the doctor will know it too? Stein says he doesn't need a doctor, just another 24 hours. And Sam asks, why do you keep saying that? Don't you understand that I'm trying to help you?
Also, I'm saying, why is it 24 hours?
Right, it should be less.
What's supposed to change between now and tomorrow that tomorrow's the day you're going to do this?
I'm not totally sure, but I got the idea that 24 hours was his plan to leave in the time machine. But at this point, it should be less than 24 hours because he said 24 hours before. So it should be more like, 21 hours.
And isn't it like 2 days, actually, now that I think about it? Because they have dinner. Isn't that the next day?
Oh, yeah. Huh. Or is this day still?
Maybe.
So, yeah. I'm a little confused with the time frame. But, yeah, I think it might be possible that they had dinner during this day. And then we led into the events the next day. Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, so Sam says sooner or later he's going to need to face this thing. And that time is not just going to stand still. Mo in response says he wants to show Sam something. They go to the basement to Mo's lab. and he pulls the sheet off the fancy equipment. Al is just there, hanging around all of a sudden, which is a little weird.
He's like just there behind the curtain.
Right. Sam asks what the fancy machinery is, and he looks like impressed when he should be scared. But Mo says it's a time machine. And Al in the background says, "Are you sure it doesn't make a cappuccino?"
Yeah, he calls it his time anometer.
Mm-hmm. And when Stein started playing Captain Galaxy, he became fascinated with time travel. He read everything he could about it. And Mo starts describing Sam's string theory.
Yeah.
Much to Al and Sam's shock.
Before that, Al and Sam are both kind of looking at each other like, oh, maybe he is crazy.
Yeah.
But, he quotes Sam's whole string theory about the string representing your life, and one end is your birth, and the other end your death, and if you tie the two ends together, you have a loop. So he almost had it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sam interjects and gives him the rest of the theory about balling up the string and being able to jump from point to point within your own lifetime, and even gives him the phrase quantum leap. So Sam and Mo now are like, they're on the same page, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're two scientists talking about theory, and of course Sam knows this is true. Like, this works.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't crazy.
Right.
And, I was wrong during trivia last week. I thought I projected that maybe we mentioned Professor Lenegro during this episode. They didn't actually ever mention him.
Yes, I did. I did note that.
But we definitely talk about the string theory here,
mm-hmm.
right? Which we were told previously, Sam and Lenegro came up with this together
mm-hmm.
in the 70s. But we learn here, maybe that's not entirely true.
Right. So we cut to the birthday party that Ben is hosting with Stein and Sam.
Yeah, they're at they're at a skating rink.
Right.
And they're addressing this whole room full of kids.
Stein ends up getting asked a question about losing his dog. If he could go back in time and fix it so that the dog doesn't get out because he left the gate open by accident. And, Stein, for a moment, he's frozen. He doesn't really know what to say. So Sam steps in and says that they stopped at doggy heaven and that he has a message for him. He's happy and okay, and it doesn't hurt. Sam declares at that moment that for the next 2 hours, all the soda and popcorn is free.
Yeah.
I'm sure whoever is running this event is thrilled with that.
Somebody gave them a look like, well, what are you doing? You're just supposed to talk to these kids, not give them things. Sam also, during this whole scene, is asked, to explain the future, and he talks about cable television and microwave
mm-hmm.
ovens, computers in every home, and men on the moon.
Ooh.
And everyone's just kind of looking like, how is he coming up with this? That
mm-hmm.
wasn't in the script. And Mo Stein's like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, good job there.
It was amusing to me that all that, of course he knows how to explain the future.
Right.
And he was able to pick up the things that were going to sound the most, awesome.
Right.
Full of awe.
Right. That is the definition of awesome. Full of awe. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I haven't looked it up in a while. But after that, Mo Stein thinks he should have told the kid that the dog's gate was already unlocked because this time tomorrow, it would have been true.
Yeah.
So in addition to doing all that stuff with your daughter and your wife, you were going to go back in time and, prevent this kid's dog from dying?
Yeah, he has high expectations on how not only making time travel work, but how it's going to work, that he thinks he's going to have, super control of it and just go do all these little tasks.
Right. And I don't agree with Stein at all. I think Sam played it about as well as he could have there.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have been telling them that they're going to save his dog.
You know what? It would have been really fun if Sam's next leap was walking by a gate that was open and seeing a dog inside and just closing that gate.
That would have been funny. They missed an opportunity there.
Similar to the cat in the tree.
Right,
could have had a cold open about saving this dog.
Yeah. They should have done that. Oh, well.
Maybe Ben will get to close that gate.
Maybe. Perhaps. If the writers are listening to this show, this podcast, we just gave you an idea. All right. So Sam thinks that Mo needs to stop talking about the time anometer stuff. And Mo is like, why? Because Irene and that doctor? And Sam says, yep, that's the reason why. You don't want to get locked up, right? So maybe the idea is to not look so crazy. Sam tries to convince him to meet with the doctor again, that they can call Irene and arrange it. But wouldn't you know it, Irene is already there. Why is she here?
Yeah, she must not have trusted that summons was going to do the trick, and she came to find him
At this event?
At this event, yeah.
Okay. Sam says to her that Mo was just talking about how he's very much looking forward to meeting the doctor. She asks, is that true? And Stein comes back with, no, he would rather get Novocaine for a root canal. And, so that little moment is kind of funny to me. Sam Bill says that, tries to play pass blocking here and says, well, he's gonna do it anyway. Sam turns to Mo and says, what do you care? You're not going to be here this time tomorrow anyway. And so this convinces Mo to go along with this.
Right.
But Mo doesn't want to go to the office. He wants basically for the doctor to come to his home, which Sam mightily objects to.
Yeah, Sam starts by saying, like, okay, how about we meet at a neutral place, like a restaurant?
Right.
And Mo's like, I'll make dinner. And he's like, no. And Irene's like, sure. And he's like, I mean, no problem.
Right, because he can't exactly express his real reason for not wanting this to happen. So Sam tries to cover for... so they agree to go to the house. They end up showing up. And Sam is trying to cover for Mo's eccentric behavior, including an upside-down chicken.
An upside-down chicken, which... I mean, they thought it was delicious, so maybe he's onto something.
Right. I mean, I don't see this as a big problem, really.
Right.
I mean, it was cooked, wasn't it? They didn't die from food poisoning.
Yeah, no, they really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed, Mo was kind of drinking his milk funny and getting milk mustache all over him. And Sam's copying him, just try and make these behaviors look normal.
Right.
He's doing everything he can to make Mo look less weird.
Right. So the doc and Mo go into the kitchen, and Sam tries to stop this, thinking that Mo's going to, do something incriminating.
Yeah.
But Mo, doesn't let Sam, stop him. Irene is looking at an old family picture, and she says to Sam that they had a few good moments here and there. And Irene is still unconvinced. Sam tries to convince her to get to know her father before it's too late. But as he's doing that, Mo is telling the doctor about the time machine. Yeah. And you see Sam's heart visibly sink.
You realize, Sam was right to not let them be alone together.
Right.
Notable from this picture, too, is we learn that whenever Mo would come home, he'd bring the mother calla lilies, which that comes up later. And you know what? I thought this would have been a great place for a Beth mention.
Right.
But we didn't get that. Because, Beth, of course, also loved calla lilies. And that's the flower that Al would always bring her whenever he came home.
That's interesting. I think maybe the writers on this show really like calla lilies.
Somebody really likes calla lilies. I wonder who.
So they all go to the basement, and the doctor seems initially impressed. Mo ends up turning on the machine, which starts sparking, and then seemingly almost blows everybody up.
And he says he's charging the capacitor.
Right.
Which is another Back to the Future reference.
Yep. The doctor thinks he's seen enough.
Yeah, because everything kind of goes boom.
Right.
And obviously not as Mo intended.
Nope. This does not go well.
It's a setback, for sure.
So Sam is showing up at Mo's the next morning, and Al appears on the lawn, dressed normally, for him anyway, and implies he had sex with his fourth wife to get her to drop the case. Sam asks how dinner went, or rather, Al ends up asking Sam how dinner went. And Sam is like, fine, until Mo almost blew us all up. Sam tells Al that Mo is him, that Sam believed in his work, and so too does Mo. And he's on the right track, he's just 40 years ahead of his time. Al says that Ziggy says that he's still going to get hit by a freight train, and that his 100 or 2,000 watt toaster is completely loony. Sam doesn't want to give up, though. And Sam has a plan. Mo comes out wearing a pyramid hat, and Sam's like, what are you doing? He's like, apparently Mo has finished repairing the time machine. That was rather quick, given all the sparks that were flying.
Yeah, he must have not got any sleep last night.
Right, probably not. Geniuses rarely sleep. You can just ask Adam. And Sam is like, don't you get it? They want to lock you up, and here you are coming out with your pyramid hat. Mo says that won't happen because he isn't crazy, and he's leaving right after the hearing. That's assuming he gets a chance to do that. Sam says he should have hired him a lawyer, but Mo wants Sam to represent him. And Sam's like, I can't do that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an actor. And he's really not even that.
Right.
And Mo's like, well, you'll act like a lawyer.
Yeah. Which is something Sam has experience doing, acting like a lawyer.
He has, in fact. That scene reminds me of the great Spontini. Did I say that right again?
You did.
Oh, wow. I'm always impressed when I do.
But he's, actually also leapt into lawyers by this point.
Yep. All right.
So at least one by this point.
The Spontini episode, I think, is the one that I can recall. No, he was also a lawyer in So Help Me God.
Right.
In the second season. Okay, so we cut to the hearing. The doctor is giving his opinion that he should be enrolled at an institution. And I was like, it sounds like we're going to enroll Mo in college. The judge asks Irene, do you really think your father needs psychiatric help? And the long and short of it is, she definitely thinks so. Sam ends up speaking up, and the lawyer tells him, or the judge, rather, tells him, actually, this is the judge, right?
This is the judge.
Right. That, just look in your crystal ball. I'm sure you'll know that you will get your chance to speak. And basically, Irene finishes up. Sam questions Irene's motives and suggests that Mo was conducting a scientific experiment. You can't call that crazy. Was Columbus crazy? No, but he wasn't a particularly good guy either.
Also, what does that have to do with scientific experiments?
Right.
He was, on an expedition. I don't think that's quite the same thing as an experiment, but
right. And he also brings up Neil Armstrong.
He brings up Neil Diamond
because
because his Swiss cheese brain confuses Neil Diamond and Neil Armstrong. Corrects it to Armstrong, but that doesn't make a difference anyes because that hasn't happened yet.
Right. So nobody knows about that.
So he's sounding kind of crazy too.
Sam argues that Mo isn't insane. And Irene asks him, do you really think that he can actually travel in time? And Sam doesn't get a chance to answer this question. He wasn't really going to be able to anyway. The stagehand comes in with fan mail.
Big sacks full of it.
Right. Sam says, one is judged to be insane if he behaves outside the norms of society. But who is society? We are. Plus the thousands of people who write in every week to Mo Stein, believing, like Mo, that he can travel through time. So either all these people are also crazy, or Mo Stein is sane. It's a good argument, but at the same time, I don't fully think that that's accurate.
Yeah, especially since the letters come from children.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but he is making this compelling argument. And he says Mo Stein is a dreamer.
Right.
Are we going to punish people for that?
And he brings up Sputnik and says, "Hey, 12 years ago, if we said that this would happen, you would think I was crazy."
Right. And Sputnik was just launched 2 days prior.
Right. It was mentioned earlier. And maybe in 12 years, Mo Stein will be traveling in time. Well, not surprisingly, the judge decides in the favor of Irene. And Mo Stein stands up saying he needs to leave in a few hours, and he's not going to let this happen. He tells Irene he's doing it for her. Mo, despite Sam trying to convince him not to, ends up leaping through the grass. Remarkably, doesn't get hurt. He could easily have died.
Leaps through a plate glass window.
Right, yeah.
It was a very crazy moment.
Right, yeah.
It was the exact opposite of anything that would convince you that he does not need psychiatric evaluation.
Right. And you leap through a window, you're going to end up with some glass in you. Maybe the hat prevented it, but he could easily have ended up with a glass in his jugular and died from that. I wouldn't recommend trying that at home, kids.
I think the point of this is, yes, he is doing experiments and has these, ideas that, are really possible, but he also is maybe a little bit unstable at the same time.
There's no denying that he needs help.
Right.
But the question is, does he need to be locked up?
Right. So, but at this point, I think they're pushing it home he's not okay.
Right, yeah.
This is not rational behavior to jump through a glass window to escape this room.
Nope. But, okay, so the judge says that they'll go pick him up. Sam says that Mo Stein is on his way to get killed. He thinks he's heading for the train, but he is in fact not going to the train. Don't know why. He's instead going home, presumably to get into his time machine to fix everything. But once again, I don't understand why he was going to the train yard in the first place.
How was that supposed to play into this? Right.
Sam Sam ends up convincing Irene to go and help her dad. Mo is in the basement, in his machine. Things are, smoking and lighting and making crazy sounds. Sam and Irene enter and try to get him out. The machine heats up. Mo tells her that he loves her and we'll see him after he comes back. But the machine shuts down and we see him actually start... Well, I'm sorry. Before the machine shuts down, we start to see Mo weep.
Right, the blue flashy light aura that we see when Sam leaps.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it looks like it almost worked. Right? Like, maybe there is something to this time machine design. Now, it doesn't work. It shuts down. He probably didn't have enough power or whatever. Maybe he needs some plutonium. Maybe.
Generate the 1.2 gigawatts.
But, like, something was happening.
Right.
And then, of course, it fails, and he's very saddened that it fails, and he doesn't believe that it failed. But we can see, he really was onto something here.
Now, I'm actually curious. Couldn't Ziggy have actually looked at the machine and maybe gotten the specs on it and, determined whether this thing was viable or not, or if he was in any way on the right track?
I mean, he had to have been in some way on the right track.
Right.
That we got that leap effect.
Mm-hmm. So the machine shuts down. He doesn't complete the leap, but Adam has a theory about that I'll let you share.
So my husband is convinced that when we saw that leap effect, Mo actually did leap, or that somebody leapt into him, rather. That at that moment, the character of Mo was replaced by another leaper. And I've heard him say maybe it's a future Sam, which I don't really think tracks because Sam's leaping as himself in the future.
Right.
As far as we know. Or he said maybe, even Ben or somebody from some other time travel project leapt in, knowing the full situation, knowing, what to say, and gave Sam an assist here. So maybe, and this again is my husband's theory. I don't buy any of this, but maybe in the original leap, Sam wasn't successful.
Right.
Maybe he wasn't able to convince Irene and Mo to work it out, and maybe somebody coming in as Mo was able to say the right things in this moment and fix it so that he didn't go jump in front of a train.
Yeah, I don't really buy it, but it's an interesting theory for sure. And it deserves airing.
My husband always often sees things different than how we generally take the stories.
Kind of like how Stein sees things. Maybe he's a little eccentric. Are you gonna have him locked up one day?
Maybe.
I mean, I think so. I think he's going to be too much for you in the future. Okay, so Mo ends up breaking down, and he says to Irene that he wanted to make things up to both Irene and his mother to give the mother some calla lilies. He was going, basically, in his history, he was going to give up the business.
Right.
She was about to be born.
He wanted to go back in time, and he has that review, that theater review that we saw earlier, and he says that was the moment where his life changed, because after that review he had so many offers pouring in that he really exploded as an actor. And he's like, I'm the thing you've never heard of. I'm an actor in search of a bad review. So that was his goal in going back in time, was to ruin that play so that the young him would get a bad review and then wouldn't have had all of these opportunities in his career, and then maybe would have spent more time focusing on his family. Right.
His goal is to get the 30 years that he lost back, basically. And Irene realizes that this is why he built the machine. And and she ends up being moved by what his father says, or her father says. And she says that, you know what, we can still be a family. We still have time to make up for all that time that we missed. And Mo looks at the flowers and asks, "Can I give these to you?" And she tearfully accepts. She tells him that she loves him, and Mo says it back. They embrace, and we cut to Mo's farewell announcement from Captain Galaxy. Sam watches from the sideline. He tells Al that he figures Mo deserved the answer, to answer the last letter by himself. And Al tells him that Ziggy had a sloppy floppy, basically
what
implying,
else is new?
Yeah, like this is nothing new. Like especially recently, the last couple of episodes, that he basically got the assignment wrong. And Mo ends up living with Irene and spends the rest of his life entertaining the kids in the neighborhood with tales from the future. Well, that's kind of heartwarming. A crazy man wandering around talking to kids.
Basically, the idea is Irene's going to take care of him instead of the institution.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way it should be. Then Mo gets a letter from a young Sam Beckett, who asks about his time travel theory. And Mo begins to explain Sam's theory to him. And Sam leaps at that moment.
Yeah, it came full circle where Mo Stein is the one who first told 4-year-old Sam Beckett about the string theory.
So that means that Sam's theory is not really Sam's theory at all, really, when it comes down to it.
I mean, you got to figure in the original, well, I don't know, because in the original history, he wouldn't have had a chance to even read the letter, would he? Because he would have died on the train.
That's true. Yeah.
So
probably.
Maybe he never read any of it to him the first time around.
Mm-hmm. Probably not. Okay, that's fair.
So this should, in theory, have possibly advanced Sam and Professor Lenigro's research, and they should have came to these conclusions quicker than they did the first time around, right? Because it was already in his brain somewhere with his photographic memory.
Yeah, probably. All right, so do we have any other thoughts about this episode?
No, I think that pretty much that covers it.
All right, so like we said, pretty classic episode. Definitely an improvement over the last couple of weeks. The next time we meet for this will be Private Dancer, which I think we might cover next week. We might do something else.
I think we're doing trivia next week, no?
We are doing trivia, but we might do.
Yeah.
So we might end up doing both.
Within the next week or two, we should have both the next episode of this and the next episode of trivia out.
So, Stacie can be reached at?
I can be reached on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, X, which is the new Twitter, all of those things, at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter, or X if you'd like, at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle, which has a bunch of new cool products that you should definitely check out. Stacie, if she wants to get me something for Christmas, definitely one of those Core Productions ties or socks, perhaps. I'd even take a mug. I think I'll take a mug. But anyway... you can also like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions, signing off.